My warm greetings to all. Thank you, Dulika, for the introduction, and Chandru, who was, interacting with me from the beginning for setting up this session to interact with the stakeholders associated with the Student Copter Research Organization, that is SCRO at SRM Institute, and all other participants in this session. So in the beginning, I'll just provide a brief about our firm before we delve into like various types of intellectual property rights. And then we will focus more on the patents and overall process, what exactly should we follow for obtaining patents, how to search for patents, how relevant and important IP can be in career for students. So along with me, my colleague Nitesh Tamtak is also joined as a participant. So he might be pitching, during Q&A sessions when it comes to any procedural aspects, of or filing related queries for IP. Nitesh is an IP process associate at Epiphany. He holds an LLB degree from Gujarat National Law University and has a rich experience in handling and reviewing various processes when it comes to filing prosecution of patents, trademark, and design. Apart from other usual businesses like drafting contracts and agreements. I am one of the founding members of Epiphany. Our firm is an intellectual property services firm. The firm's name is Epiphany as this term represents a sudden realization of an idea. Given that we deal with ideas and we try to generate and maximize the values through different facets of intellectual property, which is primarily related to patents and trademark associated with clients which originate from ideas. So I'll not take much of time in just discussing about our firm because the objective is to describe about IP. So I'll just quickly finish in 2 minutes. So we provide a plethora of services related to IP as tabulated here for patents, trademark, copyright, and strategic IP consulting. For instance, we provide prior art search and opinion to see if our client's ideas are patent eligible or not, depending on various tastes such as novelty, non-obviousness, or if the technology itself is a patent eligible subject matter or not in a given geographies. If the client decides to file patent based on our recommendations, we prepare the patent application and file into various countries, either through our patent agents or through our partner law firms in other countries. And we argue with the patent examiners in different patent offices to help our client get the patents granted. So there are various kinds of patent analytic studies as well, in which we provide meaningful insights to our clients based on available patent data and patent valuation, in which the value of an intangible assets like patents and trademark can be studied. Then there are freedom to operate studies in which the client is, before successfully launching a product in a geography, he should not be worried about the possible patent infringements. So similarly, there are copyright services when it comes to protection and enforcement of copyright, then the trademark protection, then the strategic IP consulting, in which we study the patent portfolio from a strategic point of view for any client, performing licensing opportunities or benchmarking their IP portfolio vis-a-vis of their competitors or even the state of art. So these are like our sample clients. So we provide IP services to a wide range of clients across the spectrum. As you can see in the circle, that ranging from big technology companies, MNCs, MSMEs, non-practicing entities, to startup companies and individual inventors. Apart from working with big technology firms, after year 2016, we are also aggressively working with Indian companies, especially startups, with the onset of National Intellectual Property Policy in year 2016, in which the central government provides a lot of financial and procedural benefits when it comes to startup companies for protecting their patents. For instance, the cost of obtaining patent for startup companies, they are reduced by whopping 80%. And even the grant time for a patent, which used to be earlier 4 years, has now come down to well within 1 year. So now I'll just start discussing about the intellectual property rights, what are different kinds of intellectual properties are there, and then we will focus our discussion more on the patents, which is relevant for us engineers, right? So here we need to focus on the terms like rights, property, and creation of minds. We all know what is a property. Like even the Dhulika mentioned in her brief introduction, what is a property, right? Generally, the human being acquires or owns property that can be like seen, touched, or felt, perceived, right? For instance, one buys a house, a car, a phone, you have some cash, you have some inventory, investments, or any equipment, which can be an example of a property. So these property generally was what we have been habitual of seeing the property is like tangible property. So these are examples of tangible property. So then there are another kinds of property that is intangible property, which generally do not have any form of physical existence or character. As you know, the human being is the most powerful creature on this planet, and it's largely due to the fact that humans have a greater ability to think, apply their brains to construct something, right? So when they think something constructive, which can act as a property in its intangible form, majorly it's in intangible form, this is intellectual property. Like anything, if they create out of their thinking from their mind, and if that property can be monetized, it can be sold, it has some value, then that is called intellectual property. It means a property originating from the mind, human mind, right? So there are like few examples of these intellectual property rights are like copyrights, patents, trademark. Copyright in which any singer, if he sings a song, so he applies his brain to sing that song. So that is a copyright. If you make a movie, that you can hold a copyright over that. Similarly, if you have an invention, if it relates to technology, you can get a patent for that. So these rights, who provides these rights? These rights are provided by the government. When you go in front of government and you file for the obtaining these rights in a particular manner, in a prescribed manner, the government might confer you these rights. So one question that we might wonder, what is the need for the IP? Why should not everything be free? I mean, that question is quite natural to come to all of you. So you just consider an example of a drug manufacturer, right? So can you imagine the cost involved in developing an important drug? It may be on the tunes of billions of dollars. That's a lot of money. And the effort it takes for such development, it's enormous. Suppose a company X, it spends roughly about 10 years to develop formulations for a drug for any disease, let's say hepatitis, and billions of dollars are spent, the time and energy of several people, R&D teams, they're working on the development, their sweat is there. And after so much effort, if the company develops that formulation and the moment it launches the drug in the market, and some rival companies, what it does, it simply buys that drug, goes into their lab, they do reverse engineering, and they have just cracked the formulations. So do you think any mechanism should be there? We should incentivize to the people who are spending their time, money, and energy in doing R&Ds for developing few things which can be beneficial for the society or humanity at large. So, I mean, this is the primary reason why we should have IPR. Just to incentivize innovators and R&D expenditures. If someone is making a movie by, just spending some hundreds of crore rupees, and if everyone is indulged in making pirated copies, so no one will basically spend their money to watch that movie. Then what, I mean, if all the movies, if they go with a similar fate, then of course the creativity will be at loss, right? Then also it provides a great knowledge pool. Patents, I mean, there are several crores of patents. I mean, every year, around 30 lakhs of patents are filed worldwide. So you can imagine how many patents will be there. So patents are basically nothing but the technical disclosure for any technical concept. So you can imagine the pool of information or the technical documents that are there when you just browse through different patents on it on different databases, right? Then further, when some brand or trade name is registered or protected, it provides some sort of confidence to customers that they're using a genuine product. They're not indulging into using a pirated or counterfeited products or services. So this pretty much summarizes the need for IPR. So now we will think about what kind of, what different kinds of IPRs are there. So every country will have different laws, but more or less some form of intellectual property is basically found everywhere. So the most important of IP and even the extremely relevant for engineers and innovators is patent, and it is provided for technological inventions which have industrial applicability, right? For instance, if you have developed a new mechanism to reduce leakage current in a for a transistor, so that is a technological invention. You can obtain a patent over that. So this is how normally a patent look like. I'll just open one patent and show it later during our discussion. And then comes the copyright, which can be awarded for any artistic, literary, music, or any cinematographic work. Then there are trademarks. Everyone will be aware about trademark as the name represents. Trademark can be for protecting the name of any company, any product, any service, any trade name. It can be any logo or anything that relates to, that has a purpose of distinguishing any trade, any product, any service, name of any company. For instance, here, you see on the screen a logo of Nike with a tick mark. The moment you see this logo, you will be able to recognize that the product belongs to Nike. Then there is another form of IP that is called geographical indications. So the moment you see Darjeeling tea, right? So you will just get an inkling that this tea is sourced from Darjeeling tea gardens. So if anything which has some inherent properties are there in the goods because of its geographical origin, so this form of protection is called geographical indications. Then there are trade secrets. Trade secret is somewhat opposite of patents. If an important formula or way of doing certain things are important enough so that it should not be disclosed to the public and in turn to other companies, it can rather be protected in form of like alternate techniques. These are alternate techniques in which companies, they sign stringent non-disclosure agreements with employees or workers or anyone else who is involved in development of that product. So we'll talk about it later slides when we discuss about the trade secrets. For instance, the Coke Essence has a trade secret. No one knows the formula. Then there are plant breeder rights. I mean, there are a lot of plant breeders, especially farmers, who do experimentations to develop new plant varieties. Therefore, the breeders need protection to recover the investments, their energy, whatever they are spending in developing, new varieties of plants. So these rights are generally for new varieties of plants. For instance, if someone has developed a new cotton plant, right, or grains, or sugarcane, or fruits, any kind of millets or oil. So, so these kind of protections can be covered under plant breeder rights. Then there are semiconductor IC layout designs. Semiconductor, I mean, you might be wondering why it cannot be patented. I mean, there is reason. We will talk about that later. So IC layouts of any semiconductor, it can be protected in a separate protection. Then there are industrial design. For instance, if you see this iPod, right? The iPod has a particular design, curved edges, and this circular button. All these things, because this design is unique, it doesn't have any utility as such. I mean, utility aspect will be protected in form of patent, but the aesthetic aspect can be protected as industrial design. In India, we call it industrial design. In United States, people call it design patents. So now we'll discuss about each of these facets of intellectual property in their respective slides. So the most important one is patents. So whosoever invents or discovers anything that is new or useful process, device, it can be any machine, it can be any technological invention, or it can be even improvement on the existing things, they can obtain a patent by applying to patent offices in respective countries. So patents are basically, you just see the few words like these are granted to owners of an invention which is new and non-obvious. For obtaining a patent, whatever you have developed, it has to be new. It has to have some novelty. And apart from the novelty, I mean, if you just add a minor increment into that, so that is not, I mean, that may be new, but even that, if that minor, increment, whatever you are making, if it is very obvious, it means the patent will not be provided. So the patent, in order to obtain patents, even the technology that you are developing, it has to be new and it should not be very obvious. For instance, if you consider one table which has a square tabletop, just consider a scenario, maybe at one point of the world when the table was not there. If someone has developed a new table in which 4 legs are there and one square top is there, then another person comes, and if he just changes the square top into a circular top, so will that be a new invention? It won't be a new invention because it's just a mere minor modification which is very obvious. Or else if someone adds, instead of 4 legs, if someone adds one more leg in the middle of the chair, someone makes it 5 legs chair. So even these things are quite obvious. So for obtaining a patent, the technology has to be new and it has to have some inventive step. It should not be very obvious. And of course, it has to have some industrial applicability. So the patents are basically negative rights, exclusionary rights. So if you obtain a patent, it means you can stop others from making, using, offering to sale or selling the invention or even importing the invention. So let's say if you obtain a patent on a new keyboard design. So if someone just tries to make the similar keyboard And if they want to import, I mean, if you're protected that application in India, so you have a right in India. Now, if someone wants to avoid, paying royalty to you, and if they want to import the same keyboard from getting it manufactured in China, so even that will not work. Because the moment the patented invention is imported within the boundaries of India, it will be infringing on that patent. So once patent is granted, the term of patent is basically valid for 20 years. So mostly it is from the earliest priority date, I mean, which can be in most cases the filing date of any patent. The filing date is quite important. So when you file a patent, and if you during the examination process, I mean after the examination process, if you have managed to obtain a patent, then the term of the patent, it means your patent will be valid for next 20 years. And the patent is jurisdictional based. So there is no concept of worldwide patents. So there are different countries. Every country will have respective patent office. So if you want to patent anything in India, you have to file a patent application with Indian Patent Office. If you want to protect the same invention in US, you have to go to USPTO, that is United States Patent and Trademark Office, and you have to file a patent there. You have to prosecute your patent in US to obtain a patent. So, I mean, this is the reason the patent is a very costly affair, because, I mean, it just gives you a monopoly over that invention to exclude others from making, using, or offering to sell that invention. Then it comes with a cost. Can you see this picture and think, what does it look like? Where it looks like a cobweb kind of thing, right? Of course, with the random connections between different nodes. This is just a representation of patent wars between technology majors, like LG suing Samsung, Samsung suing others, including LG. Kodak is getting sued and on the verge of bankruptcy. I mean, Kodak was once pioneer in inventing the digital camera. One can understand the importance of patent pool of these companies and the patent wars between them on infringements from their respective devices on each other's patents. So if a company has a patent pool, I mean, mostly these companies will have thousands and thousands of patents. So these patents, they come to rescue for these companies to protect their interest via counter suits. If someone, let's say, files a case, if LG files a case on Samsung for infringement of 10 patents, then Samsung might find 20 patents on which LG's products are infringing. So it's a kind of just patent war, suits and counter suits between rival companies, and they pull it into the court of law, or they do outside court settlement. In addition to, of course, I mean, these patents, they generate revenues via licensing, because if you just consider the Qualcomm or even the IBM, they generate a lot of revenue from licensing their patents. Even the Nokia, even Microsoft bought that, but Nokia has a lot of patents which is still with them, and they are just leveraging it by licensing those patents. So I'll just take few examples why patents are important. So some of you might have heard about Amazon's one-click patent. So one-click patent was what? Like in 1999, Amazon was granted this patent of one-click technology. So right now, I mean, you might have done shopping from Amazon. What you do, you just store your credentials, your own profile, or even your credit card details, your debit card details. You get it stored on the Amazon server, and the next time when you have to make a payment, you will simply click on the product and you will have, can you see this button, buy with one click? So everything is stored. The moment you click on this button, the product is bought. So Amazon, initially Amazon was a book selling company. They didn't have any brick and mortar shop. So they started selling books online, and they made that process so simple that the customers started buying books from Amazon. Then there was another company, that was Barnes and Noble. So they were quite a big, book selling companies. So what they did, I mean, their business started going down. So they just copied this idea, and they also implemented that on their e-commerce website. And what they named it, Express Lane. Buy it now with just a click, one click. But since Amazon had obtained this patent, so Amazon filed a patent infringement lawsuit against Barnes and Noble. Then, I mean, the case went on for a few years, but ultimately, Barnes and Noble, they had to pay a huge sum to Amazon. And Amazon has monopoly on this patent, which was very important patent. And this patent was, as I explained initially, the patent is valid for 20 years from the date of filing. Then this patent got expired in 2017 because this patent was filed in 1997. So you can understand the significance of one patent. So this case is quite famous in patent fraternity. Similarly, there was another case, that is Merck Pharmaceutical versus Gilead. So Merck had developed, I mean, after a lot of R&D spending, they developed a drug for treating hepatitis C virus. Again, the Gilead, they had they infringed on the patents. And can you imagine the magnitude of the damage that was awarded to Merck? That was $2.5 billion. But eventually that case prolonged, and that is currently overturned. Similarly, there are other quite famous patents on which few companies benefited like anything. So, like few of you might have heard about Google's famous PageRank patent. Larry Page was the founder of Google. Then what he did, he worked on World Wide Web, which was a kind of growing field, and focused on the link structure of a web. He kept on basically exploring if it was possible to use links between web pages to rank their relative importance for displaying when it comes to search engine. Back then, Google was known as Backrub. So he developed that algorithm, a set of mathematical rules to to just rank different pages. So that approach provided a significant improvement in basically the quality of the search results when someone searched on Backrub. This was a very valuable patent and vital for the Google's rise as the dominant search engine. So you can understand now the Google, it has become a verb and included in the dictionaries. So you can imagine the IP behind the activity is like pretty valuable and worth protecting, right? And unless you protect it, you cannot harness its full potential. You just imagine if Amazon had not patented one-click patent. So anybody would have just used the technology just by copying from the Amazon website. So it would have lost its advantage if they would not have been very vigilant to protect that. Similarly, the Qualcomm, they developed the entire technology of CDMA and patented it before anyone even could really knew if it was feasible or if it was going to be heavily used after 3G or 4G technologies. So rival companies, they couldn't do anything in CDMA because without having to license a portfolio of basic CDMA patents from Qualcomm on whatever terms they felt like negotiating with them. They sued nearly every company working on cell phone models, like who are making chips for WCDMA. For instance, the Broadcom, they sued Ericsson, and they kind of established that there is no way out to avoid, obtaining license from Qualcomm. And in fact, they earned on every cell phone that was sold. Similarly, the GoPro, you might have used the cameras, which are GoPro is famous for making rugged cameras, like best qualities, point and shoot cameras or camcorders that can be used by people, who would go for strenuous activities such as surfing, rock climbing, dancing, or you can use those cameras while doing anything. I mean, nothing will happen, right? I mean, they made such a safe camera. So the initial patent, basically they made, it was kind of one harness device in which the camera can be attached to your body and you can comfortably do anything else. And they made use of those patents. Similarly, Dropbox, they patented their technology of like how multiple clients can share and synchronize folders over a network. Even they made use of that technology. Bluetooth was one of the basic, patented technology, which later became a standard. So if you consider the prominent innovators or even the founders of big companies, they were quite patent savvy. For instance, even the Steve Jobs, like co-founder of Apple or even the Pixar, he had more than 300 patents. And in fact, he revolutionized industries such as the personal computing, mobile phones, and movies, and even digital publishing. So these companies, they have kept their legacy by innovating and patenting on key ideas. I mean, these are like names of the contemporary companies and inventors. Even if we just consider if we slightly go back in the history, even Thomas Alva Edison, everyone has remember his name. Edison has many patents, ranging from light bulbs, electricity, film, audio devices. Even the Graham Bell, who invented telephone, and that invention that led to the foundation of a company which later become AT&T and Bell. Similarly, Henry Ford of Ford Motors, Nikola Tesla, right? He invented fluorescent lighting and Tesla induction motor, and then AC electrical supply systems, and several other things. Now we'll talk about industrial design. As the name suggests, I mean, so far we discussed about the utility patents. The patents are mostly for any technological inventions which are given to any, which are for protecting any technology which has some functionality, some utility, some industrial applicability, right? But there are like industrial designs. For instance, someone has designed a new the design of this phone or even the camera. I mean, there is no functional aspect, but even the aesthetic aspect needs to be protected because someone should not copy the exact design of this phone. So Apple patented the industrial design, I mean that is design patent for their phones. So you see these curved edges. So no one else for a long time could copy similar, designs of Apple unless they get a license or they pay some royalty. So in US, industrial design is called design patent. In India, we call it industrial design. So they are basically protected for 10 years. And of course, it can be again, the term can be extended for 5 more years. So the maximum term for protection is 15 years for industrial design. So now we'll talk about trademark. Trademark, I think, is the most common form of intellectual property that everyone is aware. So it can be for, it can be any word, it can be any symbol, it can be any, any design that can distinguish the source of goods offered by like one brand from another. Then it primarily basically, it just serves as a brand indicator or identifier that guides the consumer behavior, or typically from consumption point of view. The identifier can be like in form of brand name, its logo, slogans, or even the colors. In some cases, even the sounds can be registered as a trademark. For instance, the moment you see the brand Nike and a tick mark, you understand it's from Nike. The moment you see these 3 stripes, then you get to know that this product is of Adidas. Similarly, McDonald's, LG, Intel, then there are different companies. So nowadays, every business, every trade name has to have a trademark or logo or emblem, anything that can basically differentiate their product offerings or their services offering to the customers. So this is one famous trademark infringement case. So in which you see the similarity between these two shoes. So Payless Shoes was another shoe manufacturer. What they did, instead of they tried to cash on the Adidas popularity. So what they did, they just instead of 3 stripes, they made 4 stripes. So it was quite obvious to the courts that they tried to cash in on the popularity of Adidas, and they eventually had to pay $305 million to Adidas for willfully infringing on Adidas 3-stripe trademark in US, right? So this application for trademark in India and mostly even in other countries also, it can be filed on intent to use basis. So, but one thing is quite important with trademark is that even if you don't file a trademark, you still have a right over your mark. I mean, no one else can basically, copy your trade name. But if you file it and if you protect that, it is always better because there is a, documented proof that you are protected, and it just establishes your priority date. Then this registration of trademark is valid for a period of 10 years. Initially, it is registered for 10 years. Then it is, you can keep on renewing the same after the end of every 10 years. So there are 2 kinds of notations you might have seen on different products. That if you see any superscript R, this term written with any product, it means that is trademark is registered, that is accepted. It has tested the examination of trademark registry office, and then it is allowed by the office. But if someone has, let's say, applied for trademark, they can still use the term TM along with their products. So of course, no one else can, unless you obtain this registration of trademark, you cannot use the symbol R. Now there are, now this is the next form of intellectual property. that is copyright. So as the name suggests, copyright, it is given for creative works. It can be any literary work. For instance, if someone writes a novel, any poem, any play, that comes under literary work. Any artistic work, if you made a new painting, if you captured a very good photographs, or even you have made a new statue, even all these things can be protected as copyright. Or even everyone knows that. I mean, if you can see the image of Bahubali, right? So the music, films, computer programs, even the source code of computer programs can be protected as copyright. Sound recordings. So these protections are generally provided to original work. I mean, you cannot copy someone else's work and you try to get a protection for copyright. So copyright office, they generally check the authenticity, that if your work is original or not. And you have to just provide specimens of the same to the office, and once they are satisfied, they will just provide the copyright registration. Although the similar to trademark, the copyrights registration is not mandatory, but as always, it is good to formally protect that by applying it to the copyright office. So the term is for any copyright. I mean, it has different terms for different types of copyrights. It is valid. Let's say if you have written a book, so the term is valid for author's life plus 60 years after the death. But for films and computer codes or cinematography work, it is for 60 years from protection. And even obtaining the copyright protection or even the trademark protection is quite cheap affair. So anybody, if they have anything which is worth protecting, they should go ahead and obtain that. Then there is geographical indications. So like I mentioned initially, if any product is from a particular region, and if that product has certain qualities, certain flavor, or some reputation, only because of the fact that that product is sourced from a particular location, then this is the form of protection that is called geographical indication that is provided to those products, so that no one else can source the products from some other regions and they can name that with a product which is protected via geographical indication. For instance, if you just taste the champagne is it is sourced from a region in France, that is the northeastern part of France. The wine produced from that region, it has certain characteristics. So you cannot just produce champagne in India. Similarly, the footwear, like Kolhapuri footwear. So that is sourced from Kolhapur. Similarly, basmati rice, cognac, Darjeeling tea, Naga chili, that is one of the most pungent chilies ever existing. I mean, it is also called Bhoot Jholakia. That is sourced from Nagaland. Pasmina shawl from J&K. Madhubani paintings from Bihar, like Feni from Goa, right? So these are examples of geographical indications. Then there are trade secrets. So trade secrets, I mean, if you when you file a patent, so what you're doing in patents, you are disclosing your technology to public, and in return what you are getting protection for 20 years. But if you think you can maintain your protection by not disclosing, and if no one else can easily access the secret formula of your product or services, then even this is a different kind of protection, that is trade secret. It means you don't divulge anything to public, you keep it very safe. So since the creation of Coca-Cola in like late 19th century, the company decided to keep the formula for the referencing, I mean the essence of Coca-Cola, the secret. The formula is currently held in some, bank vault, and only a handful of people can basically know how to get that. Similarly, the KFC's secret recipe for 11 herbs and spices, you might have just heard that advertisement. So even that is only accessible to only selected employees of KFC. Nowadays, even the Google search engine, initially they file for patents, but right now whatever algorithm, exact algorithm they are using, that is not known to anyone. So the primary objective of keeping it trade secret is to like score over Google's competitors and keep them in dark. But one more objective is that it just stops people from gaming the system, because if everyone knows how exactly the Google search engine operates with confidence, I mean, they will find some of the other reasons to just get their pages ranked on the top instead of the most relevant, ones coming on their own. So the questions that needs to be asked, whether can you keep your formula secret? If yes, can you, just deploy some measures, for instance, signing confidentiality and and non-disclosure agreements with the employees and workers, and can you enforce that? If these things are answered yes, then the trade secret is the way to move forward instead of obtaining patents. Then there are like integrated circuit layout designs. So these kind of protections are called sui generis of its own. So I mean, if any one of you is basically familiar with the generation process of layout, I mean, what you do, you just write a code, any VHDL code for any circuit, then you just do synthesis, you generate netlist, you just do some timing and power leakage and all these kind of optimizations, and then you generate your layout. On the layout, what you do, you just do some placement and routing kind of thing to optimize everything. So the same objective, it can be achieved by n number of ways. So if your circuit remains same, but the layout in which you make that circuit, even if it's ASIC or FPGA, it can be like 20 different ways. So then there is a reason. I mean, you cannot get a patent for that particular layout. Even if you get, I mean, that will not have any value, because anybody might make minor tweaks and they will not be infringing on your patents. Then it comes under a different protection that is called integrated circuit layout design protection. It is awarded for 10 years from the date of filing or from the date of first commercial exploitation, whatever is earlier. I'll just quickly walk you through the patents in numbered. So the patents which are filed in 2019 or this year may not be available to the public. So the data is available till 2018. So you can see the 30 lakhs patents are now filed globally. So till 2010, the number was around 20 lakhs, but now China has taken leap like anything. Till 2010, United States used to be the biggest filer of the patents. I mean, the number used to be like around 3 lakhs or something. So now United States of America, they file around 6 lakhs patents in a year. But can you imagine the number of China? That is around 15 lakhs. So you just these are the examples of 2018. China is almost 2.5 times of what US is filing, or for that matter, what whole world is filing. They are filing it alone, and this is the number of only patents. They have a different kind of intellectual property as well. That is called utility models. So even that number is also same. In India, if we see, I mean, we are filing around, the last year's number was 50,000. I mean, that number is not there in this graph. So we are still quite, laggard when it comes to filing of patent applications. But of course, slowly we hope to catch up with other countries as the time progresses. So these are like some of the companies which they file patents in US. So you can see mostly the companies will be from electronics or computer science domain, because more number of inventions come from ICT domain. So these are the top companies which are filing patents in India. The Qualcomm leads the pack. Then Samsung, Huawei, Ericsson, and Oppo. You can't find an Indian company which are the largest filers. So these are like patent applicants, Indian applicants. They based on the numbers of patents filed in 2018-19. So IITs, if you just combine all the IITs, they filed around 557 patents. Surprisingly, the Chandigarh University, they filed 336 patents. The TCS is the biggest filer. Then CSIR is, they used to be the biggest filer as well. Then the BHEL, then other companies are also there, like Infosys, Wipro. They are, also filing patents. So now we will talk about the procedural aspect of how to obtain patents. So these, till now we have discussed about the theoretical aspects of different facets of intellectual property. So for obtaining a patent, the first thing you need to have is that you need to invent. You need to solve some technical problem in various fields. So you need to begin from an invention for patenting process. So how to come up with your invention is very important. Majority of the times you will develop an invention while working on your project or product lines, or while solving any real world or practical problems faced by an industry, customers, or society, right? It could be anything, ranging from, let's say, reducing leakage current in a semiconductor chip, or improving efficiency of an industrial motor, or a voltage regulator, right? Or training, let's say, your machine learning algorithms in such a manner so that the accuracy of the prediction is kind of improved, when a new real world patterns are fed to your neural network models, or a new method if you have developed which can adjust the weights and biases of the connections between different layers in a neural network, or even it can be even in different fields as well. For instance, if you developed a new cement that has better adhesion with the sand, or that is fire retardant, or if you have developed new formulations, new office chair, or even you take any current kind of problem. For instance, even the COVID, if you solve the practical problem in which the deliveries can be basically made with with enhanced safety, or if you discourage the hoarding of essential commodities, all these things, the patents can be, it can come from any field. The inventions can come from any technological fields. So I believe, like, many of you are working with projects related to copters or UAVs, that are drones, right? So you can define problems, like you can collect problems from different from industry, from customers. You can just try to judge what is the problem that I need to solve. You can find new application areas in which the drones can be used. When you whether you want to deploy drones for specific applications, for instance, helping farmers in precision agriculture, or irrigations, or even in search and rescue operations. You have to ask questions, constantly ask questions. Do we need to make changes in the existing technology to make it suitable or conducive for these alternate uses or for this in agricultural use? Can I integrate some other technologies like specialized sensors or new aspects of computer vision or guided motions, object detections to make a new concept or make some incremental change in whatever is state of the art? Can I increase the payload of the drone? Can I find new applications of drone? Can it be used in mining, right? Or maybe providing Wi-Fi connectivity in far off places, disaster management, or even for helping law enforcement agencies. So in a nutshell, you have to be IP aware. Whatever real world problems you are solving, you have to keep your eyes and ears open with a view towards IP, with a constant vigilance, like if there is any IP being developed during the course of your day-to-day routine, course of your business, which you can safeguard within a reasonable time and effort. And it's not only about patents. I mean, it can be even protecting the trade names, the product names, source code, semiconductor layouts, anything that you work. So once you've invented something, if you have zeroed down on, just on any technology which you want to patent, so the next step comes, I mean, you have to perform prior art search to ascertain, because initially I mentioned the patent will only be granted when your technology is new and it is not obvious. So you need to do a prior art search. You can basically, just engage some external agencies for doing this search in a professional manner. So after the search, you might find some prior art. Then again, you need to crystallize or refine your invention in light of the prior art so as to differentiate your invention when it comes to differentiating it from the prior art. Once you have refined it, your invention, so that you are reasonably sure that it is new, you can just start the preparation of patent application process. Then the patent application is basically filed. It can be filed in patent offices. If you want to file in India, you can go ahead and file in Indian Patent Office. But few companies I have observed, I mean, they don't file it in India because their primary market, they think that it is in US, or the first filing has to be done in US. So if any Indian inventor, any Indian resident who is in India, and if he develops anything and if it doesn't directly file it in India, then they need to obtain one foreign filing license from Indian Patent Office, just to ascertain that the invention is not related to atomic energy, or it has nothing to do with the secrecy directions given by the government. Then they can directly go and file in, after obtaining this FFL, that is foreign filing license, they can file in, foreign jurisdictions such as Europe or Japan or America. Then once you're filed, the filing a patent doesn't mean that you get a patent. Your patent will be examined. I mean, it will undergo a rigorous examination. There are patent examiners employed by these patent offices who will check whether your patent is really new or not. Then there are, you will just, I mean, they will issue some examination reports. You will have to respond to those reports to convince the examiner that your idea is new. Once examiner is convinced, then the patent is granted. And then after the patent is granted, you need to pay certain maintenance fee to the government for every year, just to keep your patent active, at least for 20 years. So this is the overall process when it comes to obtaining patent. So there are, like, I'll just discuss about some common mistakes that we should avoid. So you have to keep written record of your invention. Okay, record every step of the invention, maybe in a notebook, or just make some logbook, right? And the book, whatever you have, I mean, it should be like page should be numbered. It should not be like written by you. So if you do those, then it means if there is a conflict, arises, that if someone is claiming that they have invented that idea before you, so at least you will have some proof to basically show to the patent office, or for that matter anybody else, that you are the true and first inventor of that idea. And you have to maintain secrecy of your invention. Like I mentioned initially, one of the foremost requirement of obtaining a patent, that it should be new. It should not be known to anyone else before patent office. So the first person that should know about your ideas should be the patent office or your co-inventors. So no blogging, no chit chats with your friends or family members, no social media, no YouTube videos. So whatever you are working with, I mean, if you're working with, let's say, you have 2 or 3 team members, so you would just discuss amongst yourself, and then you maintain a log of everything. And if you're convinced that I need to patent it, you just go ahead and engage any patent firm, or you can even do it yourself. But of course, I mean, that is not encouraged. Then you can simply go ahead and file that. But if you happen to, let's say, I mean, sometimes what happens, I mean, people are working on something, they need to, just discuss with investors, or they need to do some customer sampling, or they need to discuss that with their project guides. So in those cases, if you cannot avoid that discussion, then you need to have one non-disclosure agreement that is called NDA. So you get a copy of NDA, you just sign with every person with whom you are discussing your idea. So what it will do, it will just protect your interests. Then you assess the commercial potential of your invention, because patent is a very costly affair. I mean, you can get a patent in India, of course, with a relatively lesser cost. But when you want to go ahead and and if you want to protect in abroad, then it becomes a very, seriously costly affair. So you need to assess the commercial potential. I mean, does it make sense from business point of view or from commercial point of view to protect your invention? If the answer is yes, if the reward ratio is in your favor, then of course you can go ahead and file that. Then of course conduct a thorough search. That is we discussed in the previous slide. So that is quite important aspect, because it will give a reasonable certainty of obtaining a patent when you do that search professionally. Then be quick to file patents. Delays can be costly, because if you have discussed your idea with someone else and if you have not signed any NDA, and if you delay that, and then the other person will go and they will file. So the patents, basically they operate on the first to file system, not on the first to invent. I mean, in few countries, first to invent system is also there, but who will want to just be in that, that unnecessary lawsuits? So if you are the genuine owner of anything, you just you make up your mind and then go ahead and file the patent application. Then while making a patent application, you have to try and make it a very comprehensive patent application. You have to just include all the details, all the working of the invention, how invention can be practiced. Everything has to be there. The more you include in your patent application, the more chances it will have for allowance of the patent. Then the governing laws. The patents are basically governed by the respective, the patent offices in countries. For instance, in India, the Office of Controller General of Patents, Design and Trademark, they just manage the entire affairs when it comes to patents. So the patent offices, there are 4 patent offices in India in 4 metro cities. So you need to obtain, you need to just apply, patents in the nearest patent office. I mean, there are like geographies defined. For instance, the South India, I mean, it will come under the Chennai Patent Office. So there are like Patent Act that is enacted by the government in 1970, and patent rules which are like time to time they are amended. So the concept of novelty, like publication, that you don't have to publish that, and the priority, the date on which you file is called a priority date. So your idea should not be in, present in any printed form before your filing date. That is the priority date, right? So that is very important. So to ensure the novelty of an application, the invention must not be published, right? So we have already discussed this. So, and you have to file it as soon as possible. So the moment you file, it means you can just be, you can have a sigh of relief that you have filed it, you have established your priority and priority date for your, invention. So who can file a patent? So one who makes an application. I mean, there is a term called applicant. So applicant is who is filing the patent. So applicant can be either the inventor himself, or if the inventor is assigning that rights of that invention to an entity. For instance, if you're working in a company X, and under your employment agreement, you have signed that if you develop anything during the course of your employment, then the IP will be with the company because they are paying you. They are paying you for working on any particular technology. So whatever you develop, of course, you will be inventor, but the rights arising out of that invention will be, conferred on the company. That is called assigning. So even they can apply on your behalf, or any legal representative. I mean, if the applicant is, no more and he has developed something, then even the legal, representative can become an applicant. So there are four kinds of applicants are there, which are categorized by the Indian Patent Office, like individuals, any natural person. I mean, if you do not belong to any company, if you have developed anything in your individual capacity, it means you are an individual. If you are in startup, so you can have certain benefits when it comes to patent by reduced filing fee and reduce the time in which you can obtain the patent. That really quickens the process. You can obtain patents even in 1 year when you are a startup. Then there is a certificate, that is DIPP startup certificate, that is must to be obtained. If you are a small entity, so then again MSME certificate is needed. Even the fee is less. Then there are others like large organizations. For instance, the companies like Qualcomm and the Microsoft or Nokia. They come under this fourth category. So modes of filing. How you can file patent? So you can file it yourself. I mean, this is a special, kind of right given to applicants. I mean, you do not have to necessarily engage any patent agent or patent firm to file patents. You can file it yourself. However, I mean, that is like strongly, discouraged because there are many steps and how a patent application is written. If you just, file it yourself, you might end up in that vicious cycle in which your patent might never be granted. So in order to just focus on your work and get a better protection, you should always engage a patent agent or a patent firm. Then even if you file it yourself, you can even do a physical filing. So you can just print everything and you can submit. You can courier the entire package to the patent office, and they will accept your application on record. But nowadays, I mean, hardly people use physical mode. So if you are filing it through any patent agent or any patent firm, then you have to, they must be, filing through any e-filing system, which is more convenient, and it is a paperless mode. So what are the documents required? So you need to have one specification in which the entire patented technology is described along with the drawings. And the power of attorney, it means if you're engaging any patent agent or patent firm to file your patent, then you need to just provide a power of attorney to them so that they can apply for patent on your behalf. Then startup or MSME certificates, if you are a startup or MSME respectively. Then various other forms, I mean, the formalities are listed with the patent office. They will just tell you what kind of other forms are needed when it comes to filing a patent application. Then there are expenses, the government fee. The filing fee is there, on different aspects, when it comes to filing. For instance, you have certain fee when you want to file that, patent application with the independent office, and then when it goes under, for examination to be started, you need to pay certain fee. Then once the patent is granted, then you need to pay certain fee just for maintaining the patents. So these costs are not, quite exorbitant when it comes to Indian Patent Office. Then there is attorney fee. I mean, if you have engaged any patent agent or patent firm, so of course they will charge their fee. So this fee might be slightly, more as compared to the government fee, but of course that is worth it. So the kind of applications. So there are, there is a provisional application. For instance, if you have developed anything, but you have not fully crystallized your idea, but if you don't want to lose out on the priority date of your invention. I mean, if you have just developed kind of maybe first prototype or conceptualized your idea, and you're kind of sure that I have to go for a patent, but you've you are skeptical that you might change certain aspects, not very minor changes you might have to do when it comes to the actual product. So but there is a dilemma, like if you wait for your actual concept to be developed fully, then it will be quite late. I mean, similar technology can be protected by someone else. So there is a route, I mean, provisional patent application you can file. So this ensures priority, and even if your idea is not fully developed, it can be filed. But it comes with a caveat that within 12 months, you have to file the complete patent application. The complete patent application is examined. If you don't file the complete patent application, it means your provisional application will be abandoned. Then the patent law is territorial in nature. So like we discussed earlier as well. So if you file a patent in India, that will be called a domestic application. So if you want to go ahead and file one more application in, let's say, in Japan, so there is one route in which the patent offices around the world, they have collaborated and they have kind of signed one contract under a Paris Convention, in which if you file a patent in one country, then you have a time of 12 months to decide upon and go directly in other countries as well. So that is called convention application. But if you miss out this 12 months window, then you cannot go and file in other countries. So in order to just increase the 12 months to even more time, there is a route that is called PCT application. So PCT application is also called international application, but it should not be confused with the international patent. This is only application. So in which, let's say if you file a patent in India, so if you can file a PCT application till next 12 months, and then what happens once you file a PCT application, then it means you get additional 18 months to decide upon the countries. So PCT also does kind of examination of your file patent application, and they will give some kind of report about whether your ideas, how good that is on the aspects of patentability. So even those things can be leveraged to just have more time with you to choose on the number of countries in which you want to go. So in the convention application, you within 12 months, you have to just zero down on the other countries and you have to go and file. But in PCT, you get around 30 months to choose on the countries. So I'll just quickly tell about how to conduct basic prior art search. Since we are running out of time as well, so I'll just rush it through. So you can do a basic search on yourself only, but these are like kind of free patent databases. Of course, there are a lot of paid patent databases on which you can just formulate your key strings in a much complex manner so as to just fetch relevant results. But nevertheless, you can at least do the basic search on some of the patent websites as well. So all these like respective patent websites of different countries, they have they allow people to search patents. For instance, you can go to USPTO and then under quick search or advanced search, you can just search for the patents which are filed in US. Similarly, the European Patent Office, they provide a search. I mean, SpaceNet is slightly rich when it comes to providing patent search as compared to USPTO. Then there is like Indian Patent Office as well. So you can go to Indian Patent Office, in pass, and you can search for published patents or granted patents separately. You can, there are like different fields. I mean, if you want to search for, let's say, semiconductor patents. So you want that the term semiconductor to be mentioned in the title. So under this form field, you select title and then you write semiconductor, then you search, then you will get all the list of patents which are filed in India. Like but I mean, if you go to Google advanced patent search, then it is slightly more conducive when it comes to patent searching. So instead of going to these respective patent offices in which they would only offer the patents in their respective countries, you can go ahead and search on Google. For instance, here we have run a query like voltage regulators and rectifier. I mean, same patents should have all these terms. And this is like the patents are basically categorized in different classes. So even you can mention this class as well. There is one more very good website, that is Free Patents Online, on which you can go and search for patents. So these are international patent classifications, like I mentioned. So these are like very broad categories, like main class. Then there are subclasses. I mean, there are multiple subclasses between each of these. So I have not just expanded the entire format, but there are many subclasses. So for instance, here you see H02M7 by 68. So this subclass will represent particular types of patents. They are basically provided categorized with these class and subclass categories. So you can just do a very directed search when you just enter when you limit your search with these classification. So now we'll talk about so far we have discussed about the intellectual property and its various types, and in particularly the patents, like application process and things to consider during patenting process in detail. All these discussions are relevant for like the stakeholders who want to understand about IP or how they can make use of the same in their professional career, their business, or to be part of any innovation in general. But at the same time, IP can also be rewarding career for let's say students, as it offers interesting opportunities in various spaces. So the IP is kind of interdisciplinary field. So you need to have some legal acumen as well, like how to write patent application, how to just protect the interest of your client. And since it involves science, it involves technology, and also it involves business decisions. For instance, I mean, you have to just advise your clients whether does it make economic or business sense to go ahead with the patent, and then it just applies. There are a lot of legal rules when it comes to patents. So it's like fusion of everything. So it's like interdisciplinary field. So I mean, we saw the numbers. Like in India, we are filing roughly around 50,000 patents, but we are kind of third largest economy in the world. So of course, I mean, if we just go by that logic, then of course the number of patent applications that we might see in the foreseeable future will be quite a lot. We have to do a lot of catch up. Then the huge workforce will be required to assist in generation of IPR and protection, or there are like different aspects as well when it comes to IP services. So we can envisage that a lot of graduates will be needed in this field. So currently there are roughly about 500 small and medium firms, they are, providing IP services in India. So there are enough, employment opportunities. So these are like, IP career options, like, you can work with any IP service providing firms or any law firms. There are many law firms who are, who are either specialized in IP or they are like full service law firm, then their IP is a service. So there are like IP in-house councils for technology firms, for instance, GE, Siemens, or even if you consider, let's say Infosys. I mean, they will have their IP team in which some 8 to 10 people are working. So either you can have an independent practitioner, you can be a freelancer, like the CAs and doctors, they operate in a similar manner. You can be an IP practitioner. You can be a patent examiner with the Indian Patent Office, or else you can work with different government bodies like FICCI, NITs, government research labs. All of these institutions, they will have some of the other people who manage their IP. So in IP, what exactly do you need to do? I mean, like we discussed, if there is an idea, then that idea, whether it is again check whether that idea is eligible for patent or not. Then once that is done, then the protection aspect comes. You have to file, and then you have to argue with the examiner to get a grant. And then once the patent is granted, then of course then there comes the licensing opportunities, how to monetize patents. So all these different steps for IP life cycle, you can be just either one or more things can be basically addressed by you. So the one interesting thing with IP as a career is that you need you just get opportunity to work with creators like inventors or even the intellectuals on a daily basis. You tend to interact with a lot of folks who are working on like advanced or cutting edge technologies, be it nanotechnology, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, like robotics, drones or computer visions, or for that matter, if you are in pharmaceutical lines, for drug formulation developments, to name a few. So I think we have just slightly taken more time. That is fine. So I hope all of you might have got at least some insights about what exactly is IP and what kind of different rights can be obtained. So if there are any questions, you can just feel free to ask me, or if if we have if we the time doesn't permit, then of course you can basically contact me. You can reach out to me on my phone or my email ID. My phone number is with the organizers. So, but anyways, we can take a few questions. So if there are any questions, Balika, can you please just manage the questions?
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. We really learned everything we needed to know, and it was a very insightful conversation. Thank you so much for this. I would, with this, request anyone from all the audience to put up their questions in the chat so that we can ask the speaker the questions. The floor is open. Please put up your questions in the chat. Sir, we have the first question with us. Yogesh Dayalan has asked this question, and he asks that intellectual property is very vital and important. So why is the interest and awareness so less in India? Why is it that not many people know about this in India?
I mean, yeah, this question is very important, and even a lot of people working in the patent field, they also they are quite just, I mean, they do not want this question to even come. So I mean, that is the reason we just want to create a lot of awareness when it comes to intellectual property. So why the kind of awareness has been less in India is because of the fact that we as a society, we have been quite open when it comes to the sharing of knowledge. So we traditionally we have not when we just consider our heritage or our ancient philosophy, the
Right.
knowledge was never traded in India. But now we live in a capital world, so where we have to just flow with the wind. So then in the today's world, the IP becomes very important. So slowly it is building up, and we can like we saw the graphs, so we have a lot of things to catch up when it comes to as compared to other countries like China and United States.
Right. Uh, we have the second question. It is from Ajay Hurge. He asks that how are young people, how should they deal with filing for resources or filing for patents, or if they're involved in a patent dispute, if they don't have the resources to, represent themselves, how should they go ahead? How should they be, if they don't have the resources, what should they do?
So I'll answer this question. So even the government is quite I mean they are aware of these issues when it comes to individual inventors. I mean, like they have just devised a lot of means for startups that they can just make use of patent facilitators. So there are different programs in which the cost of basically obtaining a patent has become quite less, and there are like monetary supports as well to those startups. So I mean currently that is not there for individual inventors, but if two three students are there and if they want to protect their IP or even the safeguarding their IP, they can basically just quickly form one group to as a
Okay.
startup. They can basically register as a DIPP certification, and they can obtain they can basically go through that route for patent protection. So of course, I mean it just reduces the overall cost and even the time.
All right, sir. Sudisha has asked that what are the challenges that occur when you have to file for patents across borders, and if conflicts happen between two about an international patent, who gets to navigate through that process?
Basically, patents are basically provided, on a first to invent basis or on first to file basis. So if let's say two inventors are there, let's say one is in India and one is in US. So if you have filed the patent, let's say in US first, then the same application is basically filed in India. So then the question comes to like who has filed it first. So that would prove provide a very good proof that who is the true inventor, who is the first inventor. So then this question can be answered based on the fact that who developed that idea and who filed that idea. So
All right, sir.
does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, so these are questions. We are
So like
running out
there
of
are like
time.
global collaborations. So
Okay.
that is the reason there are like routes of PCT and convention application. For instance, if you have filed in one country, then there is a time limit of 12 months that you
Okay.
can go in other countries as well.
Okay. All right, sir. So these were the questions that were given to us, and we'll be winding up. If you have anything else that you would like to add or let us know.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, it's my privilege to basically join the session hosted by SCRO, interacting with
Thank you, sir.
students and other stakeholders. Okay. Thank you for the entire organizing committee for providing this opportunity. Although the field of IPR is quite vast and it is impossible to just discuss everything within a time window of 1 hour or so, but I believe I have been able to impart at least or arouse some of the insights or inquisitions
Definitely, sir.
about the IP. So,
Yes.
some of you, might be even aware about the fundamental duties, that are enshrined in our constitution. I mean, everyone
Right.
is aware about the fundamental rights. So, but when it comes to fundamental duties, very few are aware. So these were added in 42nd Amendment. So
Okay.
in which like one article was added like 51A. So in which the duty of all the people is to basically develop the scientific temper, and the spirit of inquiry and reforms. So the scientific temper that definitely comes from intellectual property generation and protection and safeguarding the same which is in the consonant with the fundamental duty. So
Right.
with this, I would close the session for from my end. And anybody, if they have any questions on IP or the procedural aspect, how to obtain IP, how to protect IP, so they can reach out to me on email.
Definitely, sir. We'll share your contact and contact information with all our participants when we share the other links. Thank you so much for your
And
time,
even at
sir.
last, yeah, one more thing. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
we have like internship programs as well for final year students.
Okay.
If any of you are serious enough to work in this field, and if your
Right.
profile basically suits with the scheme of things, then we will be pleased to invite you for the same.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Thank you so much. We'll be sharing all of this with our participants. Thank you for taking out the time and being with us. SCRO is grateful, sir.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.